Okay, welcome to part 2 of this tutorial, and we are going to work on the main left panel and the main right panel. So first you should have, we're going to do the main left panel first. So I've got my pile from my cut list from the main left panel. And here is the main left panel itself, okay? And I am going to go ahead and miter and fold on the score lines of this panel. So we'll start out by folding and burnishing on those 2 score lines. So that this is what we have, okay? And then we are going to miter the 1-inch flap. So we are going to start right at the score line, but just don't cut into that score line. Just above it, and miter like so. Okay. All right, and then I am going to set my scored sections to the right, off to the right, and we're going to work on this side of the panel. So the side of the panel when our sections are to the right. So the first thing we need is piece A. Okay. So here we have piece A, and it has 2 score lines on the left and the right. So we are going to fold and burnish on those 2 score lines. And we do not need to do any mitering here. Okay. And let's take our panel out. Again, our hinges are off to the right. And we are going to adhere piece A so that it is attached to the very left edge and very bottom edge of panel left of the main left panel. Okay. So I like to start with only one side. And then we're going to glue that flap against the left edge, sorry, the right edge of the panel. And just make sure the left edge is lined up. Make sure the bottom edge is lined up, and there we go. So we can burnish that one down really well. And then I will put glue on the other flap and fold it over and secure it. I think I have a clog in my glue tip. Burnish that. Okay, and then we can close up the bottom of our pocket by just running a bead of glue on the inside and burnish that down. Okay, so this is what we have at this point. All right, so next we need B, and there should be 2 of those, okay? All right, so what we're gonna do with our B's, we are going to fold on both score lines. Fold and burnish. Okay, so this is what we have, okay? And we are gonna miter the 1/2 inch flaps on these two. Okay, so we're just gonna miter the 1/2 inch flap. Don't cut into that little 1/8 section. Okay, just like that. Okay, so our B pieces, let's bring our panel back in. And what we're gonna do is we are gonna take one of the B pieces and we are gonna glue that 1/2 inch flap to the top edge of this pocket. So we can grab some kind of a paper, contrasting paper, so we can see the edge better. And we are going to glue, like I said, the 1/2 inch flap to the very top edge of that pocket. So we want to make sure we are not gluing down that little 1/8 section, just the 1/2 inch flap. It just suddenly unclogged. Okay. Perfect. And I am not burnishing so hard that I put strain on that little 1/8 inch gusset. I'm just doing a very soft burnish to begin with. Make sure that's lined up. Okay, so I'm flattening out that little gusset and then I'm gonna burnish. And also burnish from this end. I feel like I need more glue under here. All right, so there is our first piece B. Okay, and it's got that perfect little 1/8 of an inch gusset there at the top. And then we are gonna open that up so it's pointing it toward the top. And we are gonna take our second one and we are gonna adhere that one so it sits directly against the bottom edge of this 1/2 inch flap. So we will put our glue on the 1/2 inch flap. And it's gonna butt up against the bottom edge of this 1/2 inch flap, okay? Let's see if I can flatten out that little gusset. I find it really hard to adhere with the tiny little gusset. Okay, I think I've got it. So now I'll flatten that down so I can adhere. Perfect. Yes, I got that quite perfectly. Makes me happy. That is what that looks like. Again, we have that little 1/8 of an inch gusset there. Okay. So our 2-piece Bs are adhered down. So what you need next is your 2-piece Cs, and we are going to assemble those like a pocket. Okay, so how we do that, you can see we have 2 squares in the corners where our score lines intersected. You're just going to cut those off at an angle, just like that. And then you can go ahead and fold and burnish on those 3 score lines. See how perfect that is. Okay, and same thing with the other one. All right, so those are our 2-piece Cs. Let's bring our main left panel back in. Okay. We're going to take our envelope flaps, the 2-piece Bs that we most recently adhered, point those upward. Okay, so unfold them so they're pointing up, both of them. We'll work on the bottom one first, the underside of the bottom one. So what we are going to do is we are simply going to adhere a pocket to the very bottom edge. Okay, so what we're not going to do is we're not going to cover up that little 1/8 of an inch gusset. So that pocket has the 1/2 inch flap, and then it's got that little 1/8 of an inch space. The pocket's going to go above that 1/8 of an inch space. Just like that. Okay, if it's easier for you to just put glue on your bottom flap, and get that adhered down first, and then do the 2 side flaps. I do that almost exclusively. I mean, almost every time is what I meant. There we go. Okay. And also that way I can burnish this flap better. I have access to the inside. What is it, Cricket? Okay, now we'll put glue on our other 2 flaps and get that secured. Okay, and for the second PC, same exact thing. Let's move this lower pocket out of the way, and that's what that looks like now. Let's fold that down so we have access to the one on the top. And we are doing the exact same thing. All right, so now we have two pieces that are labeled D. D as in dog. So we are going to fold and burnish on those score lines. Okay, so you're going to take your ruler. Let's fold our flap underneath. And then you're going to measure down 1 3/4 from that folded edge, okay? And you're going to do the same thing over here. Okay, so we've measured down 1 3/4, and we've made a mark from the right edge and from the left edge. And remember, you're measuring down from that folded edge, okay? If you measure from the very top, then you want to do 2 1/4. And then you want to measure the very center mark of the edge that is opposite the flap and mark the center. And then all you're going to do is you are going to cut from that mark to this mark and from that mark to that mark. So do that in your scoreboard.
I want to do it on Saturday.
Okay, so that is what it looks like, and I went ahead and did it for this piece as well. Okay, so these are your envelope lids. All right, let's bring our panel back in. And we do want to miter the ends of our flaps, come to think of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and miter those. All right. So with our panel back in, we've got this envelope and we have this envelope. We can start at either one. We'll start at the one at the very bottom, the underneath one. Have them both pointing up. And then all we are going to do is we are going to adhere this folded flap to the very top edge. Just like so, okay? Oh my goodness. Okay. Give that a good burnish. All right, and then we will repeat with this one. our D pieces are adhered. So that is what those look like. All right, so next. Okay, we have 2-piece E's, they're circles. One of them you scored in half, and only in half. Let's go ahead and fold and burnish that one. Set this one aside for now. What you want to do is you want to find the center mark. You want to find the center mark of this upper flap. Okay, so that's the edge right here. And just indicate where the center is. You can do the same for your circle if you want to get real perfect. Okay, so then what we are going to do is we are simply going to apply glue to 1/2 of the circle, and then we're going to glue it so the folded edge meets up with the edge of that edge. Just be careful that when you burnish, because we don't want to squish that little 1/8 of an inch gusset that's right there. So what I will do is open that up to flatten it out and then burnish from this side. Make sure it's still nice and straight. Yes, perfect. Okay. And then with the one that has been scored both in half and 1/8 inch away, go ahead and fold and burnish on both of those score lines. Then we are going to glue that, open up both of your flaps here. We are going to adhere this to the center of this edge, so the very bottom edge of our panel. So find the center, which is only the center of the main panel, not including the 2 scored sections. And again, if we want to get perfect, we can also find the center of the circle. And then, okay, so we scored in half, and then we scored 1/8 of an inch away. So what I'm doing, so if our little gusset is sitting up, you can see we have more circle on one side and less circle on the other. I'm taking the half of the circle that has more, and I am adhering that. So that our little tiny 1/8 of an inch gusset is standing straight up. And the rest of the circle, which is the smaller section, is exposed, as you can see. So the larger half is glued down and the smaller half is at the top. Okay, so I'm going to erase my E here and there. And then I am going to use my pencil to mark the very center. I'm just eyeballing it, just making sure that that looks good to me, to my eyes. And then I am going to do the same with this one. as long as that looks pretty good, I feel like it's pretty well centered, then we can go ahead and punch holes, okay? For an eyelet, so make sure you're using whatever size hole you need to set an eyelet into it. And of course we could have done this before we adhered it, but that's okay. All right, so there we have 2 little holes. I'm going to get 2 eyelets and I'm going to go ahead and set them into those holes. There we go, our closure pieces are finished. And I didn't mat my closure pieces throughout this album. I really love that look of just having raw chipboard here and there. You could mat yours before you set your eyelets if you want to. Okay, let's go ahead and put magnets. All right, so super easy. Just take a magnet and put it under the lid so that it's not too close to the edges, but you also want to make sure that it's not too close to that edge. So right about there is going to be great. Okay, perfect. Okay, so remove the backing, stick that down, take an opposing magnet, let it cling. Remove the backing on that one, and then when you shut your envelope lid, it will be stuck in place. We're going to do the same one to this one, same thing to this one. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Okay, that is done. So the back, how I've decorated mine is I've just laid a piece of scrapbook paper. I don't have any interactive elements, except for I did cut a couple of slots into the decorative paper. So let's go ahead and put together the main right panel. So what you should have is your pile of pieces for that. Okay, so we are starting with main panel right, the main right panel. Let's go ahead and fold and score on our 2 score lines. And then, so that's what we have. And then we can miter the ends of our 1-inch flap, just like that. Now we are going to set those 2 sections off to the left. So make sure those are on the left. Okay? And next, what you want to grab for your main right panel is you want to grab, I believe, piece F, which is a belly band. And our belly band has 2 scores on either end. Go ahead and fold and burnish. And then, again, if you want to get nice and perfect, you can measure the center point of the main panel. Or you could just eyeball it. Because all we're doing is just adhering this down the center of our panel, okay? Okay, our belly band is attached. All right, so now let's take piece G. There should be 4 of those. Okay, so 4 piece G's, and you are going to fold and burnish on all 4 score lines. So let's get our panel back out. And we're going to take 2, and we're just going to adhere those to the very center of the left edge and the right edge. And our left edge does not include those 2 score spaces, remember. So you're going to glue it to this edge right here. And I am just going to eyeball this. And same thing for the other one. I'm just going to do this, make sure I get them pretty well lined up with each other. That looks good. Perfect. Okay, and then with our remaining 2 piece G's, G pieces, we are going to do the exact same thing, but we're not going to cover up the flaps of the previous 2. So kind of like a sideways or horizontal waterfall. We're just going to adhere this one right up against the flap of the previous one. so there are our 4 G pieces, okay? All right, that is what that looks like. So what we have left are 2 H, and these are closure pieces. So we are going to fold and burnish on those 2 score lines. And I am going to cut little corners off. I do have a, actually, never mind, I'm gonna round the corners. Okay, so yeah, I'm rounding the corners of my 2 closure pieces. So the 2 corners opposite the little flap. Okay, and again, I'm going to punch 2 little holes in these. I'm gonna eyeball where I want those to go. And I'll go ahead and do that now before we attach these. Two eyelets. Set those into the punches. Okay, so there's that. Let's get our panel back out. And we are going to adhere these on the center edge of the 2 top G pieces. Okay, so if you want to be perfect, you can measure or you can just eyeball it. Same thing with the other one. All right, so we have the front side of our main right panel completed. Okay, so let's turn, actually we don't have anything else to do right now. We still have a piece I believe that's I left. That is going to go onto the back of this panel, but not until we decorate. Okay, so I have my main left panel back out, and we are going to go ahead and start matting it because it's much easier for me to mat when it's not attached to the book cover. So now when I mat, I like little borders, like 1/8 of an inch borders. So when you're cutting your decorative paper, all you're doing is just measuring each section or each piece that you want to mat, and then just cut your paper to slightly smaller than that, usually either 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch. Like I said, I like my borders to be pretty tiny. So I always cut my paper to be 1/8 of an inch smaller than the cardstock behind it. You can go 1/4 of an inch if you want slightly larger borders. All right, so I'm gonna flatten this all out as best I can. So I'm on the back side of that main left panel, and I have chosen one main large scene to put here, okay? And in the Baby You're a Wild One folio, this is the piece I chose. And I did cut a slot here to put some little fun booklets inside. For journaling, you can put a picture. So I will probably do that as well on this piece. So probably I'll go in this area here. All right, so to do that, I just measure down from the edge of the paper. So I'm measuring down from the top edge. And right about 4 inches looks good, and I'm making a mark, a little tiny mark. And maybe right around here, same thing. And then I know I'm gonna have a straight line from here to here, okay? So then I take my hole punch, and I'm gonna punch the larger hole into both of those marks. Okay, and then I just get out my cutting mat, my craft knife, and I cut from the bottom of this circle to the bottom of that one, and then the top to the top. Okay, perfect. Now I did already ink the papers that I'm choosing. So if you want to ink your papers, make sure you ink them after you cut them, okay? I'm also going to ink this. All right, and there we go. So this is the main left panel, that's the front, that's the back. And I'm going to adhere this down. Now when I adhere this down, I'm not going to put glue in this section right here, because if I do, I won't be able to stick anything into that slot. Oops. Perfect. Okay, so there's that. All right, so over on the front side, I have chosen this piece to go here and this piece to go underneath. And on the Baby You're a Wild One folio, this is the piece I chose there. And I even cut out his ear. So you could stick something in there, okay? Oops. I don't think I will do this with this one. I don't think there's a, I guess I could cut alongside him, but I don't think I'm going to do that for this one. I'm just going to stick him down. I wonder if I could put a slot somewhere. Yeah, I think I'll put a slot right here. That's what I'll do. Okay, so then again, if you do the same thing, just make sure that you do not glue underneath of that slot so that you will be able to stick some things down in there. I messed up and punched one of my holes in the wrong spot. And I did not want to reprint this paper, so I just put the little hole back in place and used double-sided tape on the back. You can barely even tell. Okay, and this is the piece that's going to go here. So I will line that up. And adhere that down. Okay, so on the top pocket, I'm going to use that for the lid. I'm going to use these two for the bottom of the lid, and then over here piece B. And then I am going to create a little pocket over here just with this scrap paper. Okay, so everything is already inked. So first I will adhere these two down. What is it, doggy? You are riled up. This one I'm going to line up against the top. I didn't cut it from edge to edge just because I know I'm going to have this here. So since it doesn't cover the entire space, I am making sure it lines up with the top edge. Okay, and then, so I'm just going to make a little pocket out of this piece. So I'm simply just going to glue around the left, right, and bottom edges. Okay, so there's that. And on this folio here, I forgot to mat. I'm not done matting yet, as you can clearly see. I haven't put anything under the lid or here, so I do need to still figure that out. But these are the pieces that I used. I used this nice blue and pink with white polka dots. And then this pattern print for the lid. And then I just take scraps. When I use pieces like this, I just use scraps typically. Okay, so I've got a piece that's gonna go here, and the same design will go there. And then I'm using the same design for the front and back of my lid, okay? So we can go ahead and adhere these two down, and then I will show you how I mat that lid. Okay, so everything's down. Now to mat my lid, so I've cut this 1/8 of an inch shorter than the width. So as you can see, it's got a little border on the left and the right, but I've cut it the same exact size from top to bottom, just so I have some wiggle room in case I might make a slight mistake in cutting it. So this is how I do it. So I line it up in place so that I have my border on the left and the right. Okay. Make sure you keep it in place so it doesn't slide at all. Fold it down. And now I'm just going to trace this edge and trace this edge. And then all you have to do is take this piece and cut inside your pencil lines by whatever size your border is, either 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and line that up, and I actually got that perfect. Good, okay. So now all I need to do is just cut a little bit off of this bottom edge to get my border, since originally I cut this piece to the same height. So, wow, I really did get that perfect. Cricket, hey, you're making too much noise. So, all right, I'm gonna take a little bit off of the bottom so that I can get that perfect border at the top and the bottom as well. Okay, now of course I have to re-ink the edges. Okay. I have a 3-year-old golden doodle and she is full of energy, so that's all the noise you hear. We just were outside for 30 minutes and she ran and ran and ran and ran. That's not good enough for her. Hey, you, get out of there. You mischievous doggy. Okay, so same thing with this side. All right, since this one's going to be facing this way, I want to make sure my paper is in the right direction if it is directional. All right, I'm going to line it up with the top. Make sure I have my little borders on the left and right so that they're even. Okay, again, you want to keep that in place, perfectly in place. Try not to let it slide at all. And then trace your edges. And then again, just go ahead and cut down from those lines the size of your border. All right, that is again perfect. Now I just have to cut off the top so that I have a border at the top and the bottom. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, I need to re-ink my edges. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down. All right, beautiful. So that is this page, or I should say these sections. A little insertion point here, a nice sizable pocket there, and then we will go ahead and mat this part here. Okay, so just choose the pieces that you want. Go ahead and cut them, ink them if you're going to ink them. Excuse me. And I have these little Easter eggs for the lid of the pocket. Okay, and then for my Wild One folio, I use this orange polka dot for these two pieces, and then this pattern print for the lid with the little orange lion, baby lion. Okay, I have to finish matting under there still, but whoops, oopsies, oopsies. Okay, so I'm gonna adhere these down first. And same thing, same exact thing for your pockets as we did on the previous one, okay? Okay, so there we have that one. Looking pretty darn good so far. All right, so the matting for this panel is done. Of course, there's still a lot of decorating that we can and will do, but the matting is done. So let's bring out our main right panel. Okay. So our main right panel sits with our score lines, our two sections over here to the right. Okay. I'm sorry, to the left. All right, so they sit with the score lines to the left. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start on the back though, so now they will be on the right. And again, for the back, I just chose a feature piece, just one large scene that I'm gonna put on the back. And in the Wild One folio, that's what that looks like. And I don't cut any slots, but I'll show you what I did here. So this is already inked. Just gonna go ahead and adhere it straight down. Okay, so we have still piece I that we never adhered on our main right panel, okay? And because this decorative piece is of course different than the decorative piece that is in the Wild folio, I'm gonna cut this down because I don't want it covering these little bunnies right here. So I'm gonna cut it down to about 4 inches. Perfect. And this is the piece that I'm going to use on top of that. Okay, just like that. And I took 4 brads and I put them in the corners. I really like that look. So we can go ahead and I think I'm going to put the brads through the decorative paper so it doesn't go through the back. And that will just make it easier to adhere this down when there aren't prongs on the back of it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll make little pencil marks on the white side so I can see better. And just place them where I think they look good. Okay, I like that. That's perfect. So now I'm going to get out my soft mat. Okay, and I'm going to stick those brads through. Close them up on the back. All right, then I'm just going to, maybe I will use score tape to help keep those prongs in place. Okay. All right, and now we can just glue that where we want it. And I am, of course, the whole point of this is to have like something to insert things into, so I am not gonna put glue at the top or in the center, just the sides and the bottom edge. Okay, there we go. So there's the back side of that main right panel. Okay. All right, so on the front side, I have chosen this piece to go under the belly band. And this piece to go on top of the belly band. So just figure out what papers you want to use, cut them to size. In the Wild One folio, I used this green floral piece under the folio, and I just took a scrap paper from the feature images. This one looks like it was a scrap from here. Yes, it was. And then you're gonna need 2 strips to go in between the flaps. Okay. I've already cut and inked my pieces. So just figure out what you would like and go ahead and adhere them down. So that's what that looks like right now. All right, and then on all 4 of these flaps on the top sides, I took, so these measure 4 1/4. Each flap measures 4 1/4, so I took, 3 1/4. So I took white matte paper that measures 3 1/8 of an inch by 4 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to use those for photo mats. If you want to, go ahead and stamp yours with a photo or whatever you do with your photo mats. Some people stamp them. If it's easier to do that before you adhere down, go right ahead. So again, because my flaps are 3 1/4 wide, I cut my photo mat to 3 1/8, or you could do 3 by 4 if you like larger borders. And then on the one behind it, I'm doing it on the top side. You could put yours however you wanted. You could center it. You could put them both on the bottom. Both on the top, whatever you wanted to do. And then over here, I'm gonna do the top. for the one on the front. I'm basically doing the opposite. And then the bottom for the one on the back. Okay, and I'm going to take scrap paper and put it here, and I will, of course, decorate with embellishments and whatnot at the end of the process. As for the scrap paper, I don't want to use anything right now because those little pieces that I use around photo mats to fill in like collages and whatnot, I get those from my scraps. And I don't have a lot of scraps right now because I've only cut into some paper, obviously. So I am going to leave, yeah, these areas here blank for now. And we will come back to that later on when we need scraps, or when we have scraps, I should say. And then I didn't do anything on the back side of these. I don't know if I will do anything on the back side. So for now, I'm gonna call this one done. And we are going to move on to part 3, which is the main left side of the folio. Okay, so that is everything underneath of this, okay? Everything underneath of this. So in your cut list, excuse me, in your cut list is everything you need to cut this whole section here. So go ahead and get that cut, get it scored, get it mitered where applicable. And meet me back at part 3.